Hi everyone, and welcome back to Curious by Nature. My name is Marjorie, and I'll be your host for today's episode. 150 years ago this week, the Great Chicago Fire swept through the city. This extensive fire impacted everyone in the city and continues to be an important part of our city's history. Over the years, so many stories have spread about what happened. In today's very special episode of Curious by Nature, we're answering some of your questions about the Great Chicago Fire and taking a closer look at how it played a part in our institution's history too. When and how did the Great Chicago Fire start? The Great Chicago Fire started on the evening of Sunday, October 8, 1871, on West De Koven Street, near Patrick and Catherine O'Leary's barn. Rumors started almost immediately that the fire was caused by the O'Leary's cow kicking over a lantern left in the barn by Mrs. O'Leary, but we don't actually know how it was started. The story spread quickly, with people creating false first-hand accounts and imagined sketches of what happened. But the story of Mrs. O'Leary's cow causing the fire was never proven to be true. The city of Chicago concluded the O'Learys were not at fault, and both Catherine O'Leary and her cow were officially exonerated in 1997. Over 120 years later, both Catherine and her cow were found to be free of any blame. Although the original O'Leary house and barn are long gone, the Robert J. Quinn Fire Academy now stands in its place at 558 West De Koven Street. There is even a statue and plaque marking this historic importance of that spot. Why did the fire spread so quickly? The city suffered from a major drought all through the summer of 1871, making it one of the driest summers on record. At this time, Chicago's buildings and even sidewalks were primarily wood, and the significant lack of rain resulted in frequent fires that occurred in the city and nearby communities. With these conditions, the Great Chicago Fire spread quickly from its starting point, north and east, towards the center of the city. Although Chicago was one of the first cities to have a professional fire department, the team of 200 firefighters was stretched thin. Just the day before, many of the firefighters had spent their day battling a fire at a lumber mill. Some firefighters were accidentally sent to that same site rather than the O'Leary's barn. This confusion, the lack of fire engines, and more delays caused the fire to burn out of control. Burning embers were carried by the wind, causing it to spread even further through the city's central business district and north side. Rain eventually started to fall on the evening of October 9th, when the fire reached the city's sparsely populated north side, and eventually the fire burned itself out on October 10th after destroying 17,000 buildings and structures. Did everything burn? The fire covered about 3.5 square miles of the city. Although downtown and the north side were hit hard by the fire, not everything was destroyed. The west and south side were also far less impacted by the fire. The most famous surviving building is probably the water tower and pumping station on Michigan Avenue. Others include the exterior walls of St. Michael's Church in Old Town and Old St. Patrick's Church on Adams Street. The O'Leary house actually survived the fire too, and although the city's first courthouse did not survive, a piece of it did. Although there's no plaque to mark it, the surviving finial from Chicago's first courthouse now sits in front of the Matthew Laughlin Memorial Building at 2001 North Clark Street. You may know it as the Lincoln Park Zoo Administrative Building, but it was the home of the Chicago Academy of Sciences for 100 years. What is the Chicago Academy of Sciences? The Chicago Academy of Sciences was founded in 1857 by nature lovers and amateur scientists seeking a space where they could study and share the specimens they collected. Early on in our history, the museum's mission expanded to include programming, exhibits, and education for the greater community, and we developed focus on Illinois and the Midwest, Western Great Lakes region. In fact, you or your older family members may have even visited us in our old home, the Matthew Laughlin Memorial Building in Lincoln Park, without realizing we're the same institution. When we broke ground for a new museum building in 1997, it was named the Peggy Notebart Nature Museum in recognition of a significant donation given by Chicagoans Dick and Peggy Notebart. Today, our full name is the Chicago Academy of Sciences Peggy Notebart Nature Museum. The Chicago Academy of Sciences is our institution and honors the scientific and historical work of our institution, while the Peggy Notebart Nature Museum recognizes our current public-facing work. That makes us the oldest science museum in Chicago and the newest building. Did the fire reach the Chicago Academy of Sciences? Before the Academy moved to the Lincoln Park neighborhood in the 1890s, it was located in downtown Chicago. Like other Chicago businesses and residences, the Academy's spaces and collections were impacted by multiple smaller fires in the years leading up to the Great Fire. This inspired the Academy to purchase land on the corner of Wabash and Van Buren at 263 Wabash Avenue for a dedicated fireproof museum building. The building was constructed of iron beams, brick, and 2-foot-thick masonry walls. It opened to its members in 1868 and then opened to the public in 1869, making it the first publicly accessible museum in Chicago. On October 10th, the third day of the fire, the Great Fire approached the museum. Although it had been equipped with a fireproof vault, the heat from the fire was so great that it melted the supports of an ornamental limestone cornice at the top of the building, causing it to fall and crash through the roof of the museum's vault. This allowed the fire to sweep inside and destroy the vault's contents, along with the museum and most of the rest of the collections. The Academy's records, library and exhibits, and natural history collections were all lost. William Stimson, the Academy's director from 1866 to 1872, was a prominent malacologist who studied clams and other shelled animals. Having thought that the vault would protect the items inside, he had moved hundreds of specimens and unpublished manuscripts, the core of his life's work, into it when the fire was encroaching up to the building. Stimson and many of the Academy's staff and members who had contributed to the collections felt the loss of the museum and its collections deeply. How did the Chicago Academy of Sciences recover? Before the fire, the Academy had the fourth largest natural history collection in the country. After the fire, the scientific community and public rallied around the Academy and urged it to rebuild. Letters of condolence were sent from all over the world. Other prominent scientific institutions, including the Smithsonian, the Academy of Natural Sciences of Philadelphia, and the London Museum of Natural History, even sent specimens to help rebuild the collections. Early in 1872, Stimson and Dr. Jacob Falai, the assistant curator for the Academy, went on collecting trips to Florida, Cuba, and the Yucatan to start rebuilding the Academy's collections. For a short time, the Academy relocated to a space in the Interstate Exposition Building on the lakefront before finally moving to Lincoln Park. How has the Great Fire impacted the city? The city of Chicago started to rebuild immediately after the fire. To help prevent future fires from breaking out, buildings were required to be built out of brick and stone. That's one of the reasons we see so many brick and stone buildings throughout the city today. In the following years, additional fire stations were built, engines were developed and added, and water was made more accessible through increased fire-resistant hydrants, hose carts, and more. Technology has also made it easier for firefighters to respond to emergencies more quickly and accurately. The pieces donated from other natural history institutions to the Academy and the specimens collected in the years following the fire are still in our collection today. Those pieces, as well as others that were collected throughout the 20th century, are kept at our off-site collections facility in the Ravenswood neighborhood. The specimens are stored in special cabinets and drawers to help protect them from light, dust and pollutants, physical damage, fluctuations in temperature and humidity, and more. Our Senior Director of Collections, Dawn Roberts, and her team help ensure that those pieces will survive for another 150 years. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hoped we helped answer some of your questions about the Great Chicago Fire and that you learned a little bit about our museum's history. Although the Great Chicago Fire had a huge impact on our institution, it is just one part of our long history. How and why did the Academy move from downtown Chicago to Lincoln Park? How have our collections changed and expanded over the years? We'll be answering these questions and many more in the coming weeks and months. This January will mark our 165th anniversary, so stay tuned for more videos featuring our very special history and collections. If you have any questions about our history or our collections, be sure to drop them in the comments below. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about our collections, we've picked out these videos for you. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time on Curious by Nature.